everybody. Welcome to the Straight Out of BS podcast. I want to thank you guys for your continued support. Thank you to my Patreon members. Thank you to everybody that's bought merchandise. It's not expected, it's just really appreciated. I do everything by myself, so every donation is invested back in the podcast. I really appreciate it. So thank you guys for that. Links are in the description if anybody's interested. And I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction or anything like that. So on count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for today. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what year.
Hi, my name's Carolyn Lopez. It was Carolyn Fox at the time, and it was 96, and I went to Crosscreek Manor.
Okay. And can you walk us through like what your childhood was like and like what led up to being sent away?
Yeah. So my parents divorced, I believe when I was around 5. My mom met my stepdad when I was 7, and his son, my stepbrother, who was a couple years older, started to pretty immediately assault me, molest me. I don't know what term to use, but and my stepdad was a pretty heavy alcoholic, getting worse through the years. Both of my parents were police officers, and my stepdad is what I now know is narcissistic. I didn't know that then, right? So we learn these things as we get older and we heal and or on that healing journey. When I was 14, I had an older boyfriend, wasn't that much older, he was 3 years older, and I ran away because at that point, once I had gone through puberty, my stepbrother tried to have intercourse with me, and I didn't want to do that. I had told a group of friends when I was 11 what was happening, but I've reached out to a couple of them and nobody quite remembers that. And I was 11, it was a slumber party. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it always stuck with me that I did tell someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 14 came, and when my stepbrother started to approach that, I ran away. When I ran away, I called the police and I called Child Protective Services and I told everybody what was happening.
Okay.
And no one believed me. In fact, my stepbrother, there is a statement somewhere. What my mom told me is that I was the perpetrator. And I was tiny. I am not tiny anymore, but I was tiny before the age of 16, right? So, and he was 2 years older and a lot bigger. Like I thought, how am I the perpetrator for this? So their choice was to send me to foster care or send him to foster care. And they chose to send me to foster care, where I then ran away from the foster home. It was the most horrible experience of my life. The mom sat me down and just screamed in my face that I was nothing. And I just literally got up and I walked out their front door. A couple months went by and my mom ended up picking me up. She coerced my best friend into going along with this plan. And I wasn't kidnapped. Because they were cops, they thought that they could just handle it, right? We arrest people all the time kind of mentality. And my mom was very, very codependent on my stepdad at that point, and just a very unhealthy dynamic. they picked me up, and I spent one night at my aunt's house. And the next night, my mom brought a pregnancy test for me to take and then took me to their house handcuffed. And I was screaming and yelling and told them they need to call the cops because I'm a ward of the state, right? Like, they can't just do whatever. I'm not even supposed to be in their house. They're the ones that put me in foster care.
Yeah.
When that happens, you can't have me or him being in the same proximity. Like, they were breaking the law. So they had some of their cop buddy come over and check me out. It's like, oh, she's fine. But they didn't see like all the bruising from the handcuffs all over my wrists. And I got on a plane the next day and was dropped off like late at night. It was really late. And that was it. They made me take like my mom the day before went and we got our nails done, and she took me shopping. It was just so, I don't know, can I cuss on here? It was
Oh
fucked
yeah,
up.
you can cuss.
Okay. It was so fucked up. And when I got there, they they had me take off all my nail polish and um I mean, just talk about, and they said, well, you're the one acting like this raging teenager out there running away, doing whatever. And here my stepbrother is, who was a volunteer firefighter, volunteer cadet with the police station, search and rescue, was just this golden boy and really wasn't, right? And so they chose to just believe what he said. That's how I got there.
Okay. And when you got there, what do you remember about when you first got there? Do you remember, did they give you a physical rule manual at all? Did they buddy you up with somebody to show you the rules? To walk us through when you first got there.
No. They didn't pair me with anyone. They didn't. It was basically trial by fire. I mean, they didn't give us, I've heard a lot, like, and I've seen other people talk about like the rules sheet and stuff. They didn't have any of that when I went there. So I don't know. Part of me wonders a little bit if, it's going to sound a little conspiracy theory here, but my parents were, especially my stepdad, was very into punishment, physical punishment. So it wouldn't have surprised me if he told them, do whatever. And so for that first month, it felt like it didn't matter what I did. I was just constantly getting punished because I didn't know what the rules were, right? So leaving your binder, or forgetting a pencil, or just these little tiny things that would be no big deal. And you couldn't borrow from anyone, right? You couldn't borrow a pencil, or going to that desk at the rec center to buy a new pencil. And then I remember being told your money hasn't been released yet. Like, it just felt like that first month didn't matter what I did, right? So I ended up, that first month, I found a razor. Somehow, for some reason, they let me use a bathroom that was not typical. I don't remember why. I don't remember if there was something going on with the plumbing or something happening, but I used a different restroom and I went rummaging and found a razor, and like a shaving razor, right? And I hid it, and for like the next 4 weeks, maybe 3-4 weeks, I just sat and my wrist.
Yeah, I did the same thing with a name tag. I broke off metal, like you know how there's like metal on the lanyards of the cheap name tags. How they have the string, and then they have the metal piece, and then the metal piece
Yes.
attaches to the lanyard. Well, I broke the metal piece off, and I fucking like went back and forth until it got really sharp, and then I cut my arm too. And then they sent me to intervention for that. They an intervention.
I was put on staff buddy for weeks. I don't remember how long, but I had decided I wanted to end my life because my case manager at the time had told me that I was lying about the whole stepbrother thing, right? And what was so, I guess, validating watching the program is that hearing other people say that they had to exacerbate and what's the other word for it? Make bigger their stories, right? They couldn't just say I used drugs a couple times. Nice, buddy. I'm on the phone, okay? Kiss and hug. Kiss and hug. Sorry, Jordan.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Did you have a good day? Great. That is Jordan.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Hey, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time with Jordan, and then we can go in. You can help me make the burgers, okay? Okay, well, we'll choose something else. Okay. We could get you one later. Okay? Go and say with Sissy. Thank you so much. Okay. Sorry about that, Jordan.
No problem. No problem.
I've had 2 lives.
Yeah.
I've had, sorry, I don't know how to stop that. This is the first time I've done this.
It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine.
I've had 2 lives. I got pregnant very young and have a 25-year-old and a soon-to-be 24-year-old, and divorced that previous life because it really mimicked the life I grew up in, and remarried, and now have a life that I'm choosing to have, like the healthy version. And so those are my little ones.
Nice.
So anyways, back to, I was basically just hounded in therapy and in with my case manager and my therapist that I was a liar. And I lied about this. They weren't concerned about, my parents said I did drugs and alcohol. And to be honest, I didn't. I think I tried pot a couple times. It just wasn't my thing. And when I would go out to parties, I was like the caretaker mom person. I made sure everybody got home safely. Nobody was drinking, driving, was holding people's hair as they were throwing up. Like, I was the caretaker person, right? They really just wanted me to admit I was lying. And then after staff buddy, a turn of events happened, and I was out playing soccer, and I fell and I broke my tailbone. And I didn't get medical care for weeks, and I couldn't move, and they kept saying I was manipulating, I was lying, you can move, and really trying to force me to do those things. And I couldn't. Finally they took me to the hospital, and the doctor came out and really reamed the ass of the staff member that took me. And it wasn't that staff's fault, right? This was Ron's doing. And said, yeah, it's broken, and it's a check mark into her colon. And so that's why I was having all these issues. I was sent away with a couple scripts, and like the second week of resting. So I spent 2 months upstairs at the Manor in a little room with no TV, by myself, with just writing materials because I couldn't move. And I had gone down to get my meds. And of course, it's all staff, right? Staff signature, staff handout. They open your mouth, move your tongue around. And I was missing them. And my case manager is the one that she took all of them, like Percocet, Vicodin, all of it. So I don't know what they did. All of a sudden, I got switched to, I don't know what it's called, but it's a very, very low. It's like a Tylenol 3, right? Or something that's very low for a prescription. I don't think that they let anybody know, right? Because the doc's not going to go and refill that script. So I don't know if they told the doctor, oh, we need something less. She's doing good. What lies happened there, right?
I guarantee they probably took them themselves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, she was gone then, like that week. I didn't ever see her again. And my new case manager brought me into the office and said, I know you're lying. Just tell us you're lying. And at that point, I thought, I think that if I ever want out of here, I'm going to have to say I lied. And so I said I lied. And within a month, I was on level 4. And it was surreal. It was just like, what the hell happened? I think that, well, what I now know is my parents had prepaid for only 6 months. They only had 6 months to get me to do whatever, right? And I went through the seminars. The last seminar was with a broken ass. And I remember some of those staff being so mean. Just constant berating, like constant, you're just manipulating. It was just constant, that word, always manipulating. You just want people to feel sorry for you. And I'm like, go talk to the doctor. Like, are you serious right now? So, it was, it was, it was difficult. I got out in, it was either the end of May or beginning of June of 97. And as soon as I went home, I think I was home maybe 3 or 4 weeks. My stepbrother approached me again and said if I didn't have sex with him and if I told anyone, or that he would make me have sex with him, and if I told anyone, he'd make sure I go back to that school. And so I felt like I couldn't tell anyone anyway because they don't believe me. I've already said I'm a liar. There was no way out. There was no, I didn't want to go back to the school. I didn't want someone to have power over me or my body. It was so, and I ran away again. But I waited until my 16th birthday. And
Did you just kind of lead him on until then? Well, not lead him on, but just like act like, oh yeah, sure, I'll follow along with it. And then like when you were 16, then bolted? Or
no, so this this happened. So I think it was the end of May, beginning of June, and my 16th birthday is July 1. So I
okay.
didn't have to wait. Like by the time within that month of June, he had approached me, threatened me, and then I'm like, well, I'm 16. I'm out. I'm gone.
Oh, okay, so you didn't have to like play along with it. Okay. Okay.
No. I think there was before that, there was some passive, when someone looks at you and you know what they want, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't that direct conversation. Was one night when all the parents are gone and he just walked in my room and told me. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
sorry, I didn't want it to seem like you were leading him on. That was a bad choice of words. I was just trying
no.
to play along with it. You know what I mean?
But I get, yeah, no. You know what? As a female, and I'm sure a lot of males do this too, so I'm not trying to do any kind of gender thing, but there are times we have to play along for safety,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And no, I totally get what you mean. But
Okay.
I emancipated myself September of 97.
Okay. How long after you got to Spring Creek did they put you through your first seminar?
Or Cross Creek?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Right after Staff Buddy and right before I broke my butt. So I'm going to say it was, I think, January. So I got there in October. I think it was January when I went through the first seminar.
Okay. And what was the first seminar? Orientation or discovery?
Discovery.
Interesting. Okay. How many people were on the facility when you got there on average, and how many people were there when you left? If you had to make an estimate.
Ooh, I think there were, I want to say around 200 girls.
Okay.
And the same when I left. And it was only girls. And I don't know, because they had 3 different places. So they had, or 4. They housed us all at half of the hotel. A set of mods, like modulars that were only for sleeping. And then the Manor. Oh, I guess the rec center was only during the day. So if you slept at the Manor, you did everything at the Manor, right? But if you slept at the hotel and you slept at those mod places, then you went to the rec center. So I did both. They moved me all over the place.
Yeah. Okay. And did you get to go to the library at all? And if you did you read any good books?
There was no library trip
Okay.
at all.
What about working the kitchen?
No, I think at that time they only had maybe 1 or 2 helpers in the kitchen so
Okay.
no.
Okay. Um, what was the hardest part about being there for you, and how did you deal with it?
I'm trying to think, like, how do you pick just one?
You can do more than one if you want to.
I think the hardest part for me was going to therapy or group therapy. I had both. I had individual and group every day. And wanting to be open and honest and wanting to heal, and everything was counter to that, right? And so you're ending up really lying and having to berate other girls, and everybody got off on that, right? And so the more um feedback that you could give, right? And the more, that was probably the hardest part, because that's just not me at all. I can deal with the staff. I could deal with not talking or not looking at someone or not, like, those were all hard things. Um but having to face someone in the eye, and you think you know them based on the story they've told, and at the time, right, I don't know that they are making this grandiose story so that they also get validated,
Yeah.
but it's validation on a lie. And so that was one of the hardest things for me.
Okay. Did they load you up with prescription medications? Well, first of all, were you on prescription medications before you went there? And when you got there, did they load you up with prescriptions, or did they take you off cold turkey, or did they not have any medications at all?
So, what I noticed is I was very different from every other girl there. And I think that's because of the type of contract that my parents signed and prepaying for that 6-month block to lower the cost. That's why they did the pregnancy test. That's why that day I went and got my nails done and stuff, I took a psych eval. It was a 4-hour psych eval. And so Dr. Goat, who was the psychiatrist at Cross Creek at the time, didn't do any psych eval with me, and I was not on medication prior or during, except for the pain medicine from breaking my ass, but no. So I didn't have any kind of testing while at Cross Creek and no meds. But I think it's because I had that literally the day before I left, went through that psych eval. And, if I had been honest in that psych eval, I probably needed some medication, right? But I wasn't honest.
Yeah.
So
How long did it take you to get level 4?
maybe 2 months once I said I lied. Maybe.
Okay.
It was literally every week I went up, and I think I went from 1 to 2 in a week, and then 2. Well, I was at level 1 forever, right? Because I was on staff buddy. Once I got to 2, I think it was maybe a month between 2 and 4.
Okay. Did you notice any grooming by from staff to students, or student on student, or any sexual abuse happening at Cross Creek?
I didn't
Did you hear
see
about it?
I didn't see any sexual abuse. I didn't see any I would say grooming. No, maybe. I would call it like favoritism,
Okay.
right? Like that you could have 2 girls do the exact same thing, but this one doesn't get in trouble, or this one gets an extra snack, right? Or before transportation, or this one gets 5 minutes extra in the bathroom to take a shower. Those favoritism type things. That's the only thing that I saw during my time.
Okay. And how was the food there? Was it horrible? Was it bearable? Was it good?
Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. That was like a running joke, is Cisco food, right? Like it was so, and it's based on like a Mormon diet. And I'm not religious. I might be spiritual, but I'm not religious. And so the no caffeine, I doused everything in syrup. You find creative ways, right? Everything was doused in syrup or sugar because it was so bad. It was so bad.
Okay.
Physical abuse, though, there was that.
Okay. You want to talk about that a bit?
It was like a given permission for staff to be physical. Like if you don't sit down quick enough, it was cool for a staff to just come and push you to get you down. Right? Like there was this, I remember there was this girl, I don't know, we weren't allowed to give like last names. And so I've made mental notes. I only remember one girl's name, two. I'm sorry. I remember a girl named Summer and Jessica. And there was this girl who was not in my group. And I don't know what issues she had. Because I never heard her story, but there was a stabbing that happened. And
I've actually heard from another person about this, but continue.
really,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
So it was between this one girl who I am assuming had some disabilities. It's only because what I am now is I'm an advocate for people with disabilities of any kind, behavior health or developmental,
Nice.
and a lot with families with kids that have disabilities, right? So from my perspective now, looking back, I would say that one of them had something. I don't know if it was autism but she also carried around a donut like I did to sit on, but hers were for something else. I think hemorrhoids. I don't know. She she just had some issues, a lot of like health related type issues from what I remember, right?
Okay.
And there was another girl, and there was some kind of stabbing with a fork, I believe. I believe it was a fork. I'm in my 40s now, and this was a
Yeah.
long time ago. So,
Fine.
um, and this was I was on the couch in the case manager's office. It's where my little area was because I couldn't be with anyone else at the time, right? So, um, I remember Ron staring down the girl with blonde hair, not the girl with the health issues, but the other girl, almost like he knew she would snap. Like he knew what buttons to push, and that girl lit on fire. I mean, it was just and it felt like watching as an observer that she was just purposely constantly being set up to do these physical aggressions. So that too. So not just known for the staff to be physical. I never saw like what was in the program, the video of like the guy picking up the kid by the throat, but enough pushing and crossing the line stuff. Um, but they also did that like as a manipulation to other girls, like girl on girl fighting. Um, there's supposed to be no gossip, but then you overhear staff telling a girl, "Oh, you know what she said? You know what she's doing?" Like, and amping that girl up to want to go fight. It was just a massive setup. It was just a massive setup. So I'm interested now that you said you've heard, and like I said, they weren't in my group. I think about them now. I have never thought about Cross Creek so much since watching that docuseries. My husband never knew. I tried to talk to my mom about it. She passed away in 2008. Um, there's no It's amazing to me what happened, when the universe says, "Okay, it's time you deal with this."
Yeah. It's crazy. Um, what was the worst thing you saw or heard about there, or that happened to you?
The worst thing well, I think the staff buddy thing was probably one of the worst because no food, no drink, no bathroom when you need it. Um, no, I mean, that's torture. That's like the stuff that's even illegal. We can't even use that kind of stuff in our terrorism type stuff, right? Like that was probably one of the worst. The worst specifically to me is I had a staff take my donut, and it's the only way I could sit down. So I walked in like this 90-degree angle, because if I stood up straight, that check mark would go further in and it would cause a lot of pain. And so I walked hunched over. I ended up having to have it removed a year later. But he took my donut and like teased me with it, and kind of it, or having me go through focus, and they want you to dance around and do these things. It just, I think the whole thing was awful. Just the whole thing. There are a couple things I will say that I still use that are, in general, I think are good information. I just don't think that they provided it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that, for example, when I'm talking with someone and they're getting really defensive, I will wait or ask them, let me know when you're open to hearing what I have to say. So that openness part, I think, is really valuable, but not from Cross Creek, not from them. Just in general communication. The rest of it, I think it's all just crap. I think it's all bad.
Okay. Did you graduate?
No.
Okay.
They thought that I left with credits of a senior, and there was nothing. There was nothing. So,
Okay.
no, I didn't.
And let's talk about reintegration into society. What was the hardest part about reintegrating into society for you? And you can say more than one. And what have you struggled with most?
Talking to people, just generally talking to people, looking at people, like even when we were allowed to talk, we couldn't look at them, right? And so your head was down and you were talking, except for in group, where you had to look at them and give them feedback. Like it was so messed up. I had these habits of like forever asking to use the bathroom, or just social anything. Like I feel like I went back to, somehow infancy, or I was a guest in my own home. It was, and then, oh my gosh, being constantly afraid that any little mistake after that, I was going to get sent back. So, spilling milk and I'm going to get sent back, or just that constant being on. I had so much anxiety. If I was doing something wrong, or if I was, that was the hardest part. That was like, I still deal with anxiety from it. Not specific. I mean, I still have to work on my social anxiety now.
Yeah.
That's how deep that went, right? That wound is so deep when someone, for me, never have been validated in my home life for anything I ever did, and instead was given the signal that I was wrong or demeaning or demeaned. And as I grew up, then I wouldn't trust myself. I wouldn't trust myself to make my own decisions. I wouldn't trust when I needed to make a decision, right? Whether it's financial or whether it's, you know, just, do I want a sandwich, right? You don't trust yourself. When you don't trust yourself, then you make these really bad decisions. And that has been a work in progress to trust myself. And I think that is the ultimate deepest wound that I have, that no, I can, and you're good. And if something happens and goes wrong, well, then we learn from it. Like, I've had to totally reprogram myself that you're not manipulating anyone. These are true feelings that I can think one thing about a topic or a situation. I can feel something different, and I can behave a third way. Like, not, those things don't have to match, and it can feel uncomfortable, and it doesn't mean that I am manipulating or trying to take advantage of anyone. So that's probably the biggest thing that I still work on.
Okay. Do you deal with any guilt from your time in the program? Like consequenting people or anything like that?
Yeah, just that, where you consequenting people. Why does that sound so familiar? Is that where we took things away?
No, like
Like,
where you would call them out on the rules. Like when you got on level 4, they usually have you like consequence to lower levels.
oh no, we didn't do that.
Okay.
But what we did do is, in group therapy, you would get called out on whatever behavior, right? So let's say the therapist says, well, I've noticed you've done that. And it was kind of like your cue, right, to then go. And I had some guilt. I don't anymore. I've I mean, it's one of those things where I've I've worked through a lot of that. Um, but when I think about it, I start to feel guilty again, that, sending people back to level 1 or 2, and they're also at a 4 or a 6 even. I had a girl at a 6 that she wasn't from she was from Australia. They were sisters, and she was demoted from 6 to 4, or putting people on silence, or, like these stupid things that we would all vote, for, um, just the trauma that I caused, right? The trauma that I caused.
Okay. Did your credits transfer for school?
No,
Okay.
because there was nothing. There was literally, it said Browning Academy. There's nothing.
Okay. Was there any good at all to come out of your experience? And it's perfectly fine if there isn't.
I think that the good that came out of it was, it put me on a path of what I do now. Like, I wanted to help people, not hurt them. And I think, had I not gone through that, I don't know that I would have done, the steps that I've done to get me to where I am now. I think that's the only good that came out of that, is a knowledge base, and that I can validate other people, that I can say, yeah, I've been there too, right? And so, um, even now with what you're doing, Jordan, I've reached out and asked quite a few people, and given your link to get some, hopefully, eventually, some laws changed here in Arizona. They're going to watch this interview. And I don't think that if that would have happened, I wouldn't have been able to give it out. I wouldn't have been aware, right? So that's, I think, the good that's come out of that.
Okay. Have you told, I know that you had like 2 families. So did you tell any of your kids about what happened to you there? And are you going to tell your kids?
I haven't told my kids. I don't know if I will or not. I mean, it's not something that I purposely hide. It just doesn't come up. I think maybe it came up when I was younger a lot more than it does now. I think, yeah, I don't see why I wouldn't tell them, and they'll be able to look it up on the internet. They're a lot smarter with that kind of stuff than I am. My older kids, I'm right now no contact with my oldest son.
Yeah.
And so, if you were to ask when he's older, I don't mind telling him, but he's not in a place right now to hear me. So, like I said, that first life, I married an alcoholic, and he did a lot of drugs, and I was pregnant at 16 and had a really hard life, bouncing around in different states and trying to figure things out. And it just all came to a head in 2014, and I ended up divorcing that life. So my son, I see him get so angry, and I wish I could. Sometimes I wish you could go in and just open the brain of your elders a little bit, and you could really just see, look, it really just pause, just take a deep breath, right? It really isn't as bad as it feels, and let me show you. But yeah, if he asked, I would share. He's just not in the space. So
Okay. And have you talked to your parents about how this affected you? I know you said your mom died. And do you think you could ever forgive your parents? I've forgiven my parents, but I'll never forget what they did to me. So where are you with your parents?
I don't talk to my stepdad at all. He killed my mom. So that's a no-go. And I don't care anymore what he thinks. I don't need his whatever. Like, he's just nothing. My dad, on the other hand, my biological dad, I've brought it up to him years ago and found that he had no idea. So I lived in Oregon and my dad lived in Texas, and I didn't understand until I am now in the position right where I have a stepson who has a biological mom, and the different nuances that come with having a blended family, right? And different real life drama that happens with egos and with rules and with overstepping boundaries. So from my dad's perspective, over the years, my stepdad and my mom made it really hard for my dad to see us. And they would blame him though. And that's that narcissism, right? So like they would set up a date and time for him to pick me and my sister up. And then he would show up and they'd call the cops on him. And so it's just this game constantly. And after a couple years, my dad said, I needed to have my own life. Not that I didn't love you girls, but either I was going to stay and they were going to make my life hell, or move away and hope someday that you would understand what the dynamic that was happening. And I do. I can totally get that now, right? Because I've experienced it from the same people. And he said he had no idea. He had no clue of what was happening to me. He knew I was in Utah for school, but it was never explained to him for anything. And my mom had full custody. So she didn't give him any kind of information for him to then try to take to court. And at that time, I don't know that he would have, because he didn't necessarily have the confidence yet. Right now, he definitely has the confidence and to go up against like my stepdad, right? But at that time, I think he knew that all the ducks or all the chickens or all the eggs were really in their basket and not his. So he didn't know.
Okay. And if you could go back in a time machine,
If I could not go through it, would I do it? I don't think so. I think I would go through it, because even the hell that I went through there was nothing compared to every night or every other night or at least a couple times a week being approached. That was the only saving grace, is that nobody was trying to sexually get to me, touch me. There was no knock at the door. There was no anything. There was no experimentation that somebody wanted to do on me because they learned about what popping a cherry is in junior high, right? Or high school. Like there was, so if I had to do it over again, I 100% would.
okay. And is there anything else you want people to know about your experience, or anything that you might tell a parent thinking about sending their kid to a place like this?
I would 1,000,000% say, do not send your kid to a place like this. The damage that it does, I think, is a lot. It lasts longer and goes deeper than any damage that they're currently doing in that moment, right? So I think there's other avenues, there's other things out there that can help. If you ever end up wanting some, I've got a few. I would never, ever suggest for anyone to go through that. It's one-sided, and you're not, quote unquote, fixing anything, right? Like it's not. So no. And I'm sorry, Sweetie, what was your first question?
Is there anything else you want people to know about your experience?
No. I'm just very grateful to tell my story, and that I absolutely love what you're doing, and hope it helps someone else.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And if you ever want to do part 2, if things come up, because they usually do, then make a list and then we'll do part 2. And if
Okay.
you watched this far in the video, please make sure you like the video, share it, and subscribe if you're not already, and hit the notification bell so you're updated on all new videos. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.